Welcome everybody to the first episode of the Gas Safe Register podcast. I'm Rob. This is Stevie. We both work on the technical team at the Gas Safe Register. We thought we'd just do this podcast. It's just another way to try and communicate with the engineers, just to try and get a bit of information out there or help engineers where they're struggling. So, like I said, I'm Rob. I've been on the technical team for about a year. My work history, I've started at British Gas, 1998. Worked for British Gas for quite a long time. Worked for other big companies like HomeServe. Done various roles throughout the industry, and now, just over a year ago, I joined Gas Safe Register technical team. So, Stevie, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Stevie. I started with British Gas way back in 1983. I worked there until October 2019, so about 36 years, I think it was. Left British Gas, and plan was to retire, or semi-retire, but ended up working in a training centre, the centre manager in a training centre for about 18 months, and then seen the job with Gas Safe Register. Applied for that, and I've been working here since February 2021. It's about 2.5 years, and really enjoy the role.
I think me and you, Stevie, are still quite newbies on the team, aren't we? I think a lot of the team have been here quite a lot longer than me and you, haven't they?
Yeah, we are. I mean, when I first joined, I think it was nine or 10 of us, and we were the new guys. We've had a few colleagues have joined since. So a really good wide range of experience across the team.
Yeah. No, I think you got quite a few of us that are from a lot of different backgrounds. I mean, like myself, I'm domestic. I know you were mainly domestic as well, but obviously doing the training, you've probably done a bit of everything. We got good guys, you know. So I think what people don't realise is we get such a wide range of questions, don't we? You know, it can be anything from your normal domestic boiler to 2-inch gas pipe in a commercial setting to something on a boat. So you know, I think together, I think someone worked out. I might have imagined this, but I'm pretty sure someone told me when I first started, all of us combined had something like 300 years or something ridiculous of experience. So you know, it's a lot. But so moving on to the next section, what's popular on the tech line? So we get obviously a lot of wide range questions, but among them, I think the majority of our calls are probably domestic, Stevie. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, they are. Most of the calls are domestic. It's usually people doing landlord gas safety checks, funny enough. And they come across, situations and they're not sure how to classify them. So they'll come on and they'll give us their scenario, and we kind of guide them through the risk assessment and classification and engineering judgment, and just kind of try and guide them to the right classification.
I agree.
But, it ranges from people doing landlord checks to people working in commercial kitchens or plant rooms, and it kind of helps. We've got all the access to all the documents, all the IGM documents, British standards, so we can usually we know roughly which document to go on to go in and try and get the right information from them, and then try and help them to get to their answer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well, because a lot of people that ring in, they don't realise, you know, we're just gas engineers. We're just gas engineers sitting here with all the standards, like you say, in front of them. You know, we don't know all the answers, and we don't pretend to, do we? If we don't know a question, we've got the rest of the team that we're luckily enough, you know, to have a team like ours that we can go and ask, you know, oh, I've got this question, I'm not sure the answer, you know, and they can point us in the right direction. So, yeah, I think that's important, because, you know, for engineers to not feel like they can't ask us a question, you know, or maybe that's too simple. It has to be a really complicated question. That's not the case at all, you know, even if you're a new starter, or you just, you know, we've all had it, one of those days where you think, oh, Jesus Christ, I've got a mind blank and I just can't remember what that is. So, yeah, I think that's a good point, that, you know, any question, and we're just engineers with the standards in front of us. So I'm just going to go through some of the questions I picked, really, what's been popular over the last month. So The first question.
Fairly common question as well. Do we have to remove all lead pipework when we come across it on a gas installation?
Yeah, so we get, like you said, get this quite a lot. No, quite common to find lead in older houses, you know, and as long as it's in good condition, not leaking, it's adequately sized, so you know it's not kinked and it's affecting the flow of gas, then it's perfectly fine to leave connected. However, good practice, you know, you would always advise the customer, if you're doing any sort of pipe work, you could replace that with copper or whatever material you're using, to sort of bring that up to standard. So can leave it as long as it's good condition, it's fine. The last question I picked out of our sort of frequently asked questions for this month: what size pipe work can I work on if I'm just covered under domestic ACS as an engineer?
Yeah, very, very common question. We get this all the time. So a domestic gas engineer can work on any installation, including, so we'll give you the different scenarios. So up to including a U60 meter. A U60 meter is classed as a large domestic meter. So we can work up to that, up to and including 35mm copper and 1¼ steel pipework, and with an installation volume not exceeding 0.035 cubic meters. So it's important that the engineers tick all of those boxes, and this is in accordance with IGEM UB 1B for Bravo, which is the document for tightness testing for LPG and natural gas small installations.
So up to and including U16, up to including 35mm copper, and your installation volume no bigger than 0.035 cubic meters. Yeah, like I say, we get that a lot. Let's move on to the next section, which is open fluid appliances. So obviously we get a lot of guys that have been in the industry a long time, and they don't struggle with open fluid appliances and ventilation, because, you know, you're like myself, Stevie, you know, it's common practice to see open fluid boilers, back boilers that are open fluid, and you know, ventilation. We get a lot of they're not commonplace anymore, and obviously as engineers have come up, you know, in the last sort of 5 even to 10 years, you know, they're not that confident with open fluid appliances. Get a lot of younger guys that sort of, you know, find their first back boiler unit, you know, and they're like, God, I ain't got a clue. And then, you know, that's sort of how the industry's changing, I think. And and I think over the years, you know, next few years, they'll probably die out even more. So so yeah, I mean, just a few common things really. Back boilers and fires, obviously you're looking for ventilation a lot of the time. You're looking for it to be sleeved, you know, and open fluid appliances as well. I think you know, the calculation, obviously most people know the calculation if they read in their books, or they can always ring us as well. So if you've got a back boiler unit, for example, you're taking off 7 for your adventitious, and timesing it by 5 to get your calculation free area. So obviously it is important to fully check vents. I know in the past, I mean, just from personal experience, you find weird and wonderful things out there, don't you? Like I've had a bit of glass once that I found in a customer's vent. You know, I couldn't see it. I sort of looked through, it all looked sleeve, and they'd cut it so perfectly that I didn't know until I'd actually put my screwdriver in there. So I guess, like, you know, another good tip, always pop your long Phillips screwdriver through just to check it's all clear. I mean, what are some of the things you found looking for vents on open fluid appliances?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, the tip would be, when you're checking a vent, you should always feel a bit of a draft. If you're not feeling any draft through there, then it's an absolute it's a clue that there's something wrong with it. I would say always remove the inner part of the vent so you can properly inspect it, because sometimes you'll find restrictors that are still fitted in there, which will reduce the free area of the vent. Cling film is a good one, because again, as you say, similar to glass, you can see through it, but you can't always see it. But if there's no draft there, there's a clue that there's an issue. Sometimes it's not as subtle. Sometimes people will just shove an old towel in there to stop the draft. But it's very, very important to properly inspect it. Make sure it's sleeved throughout. Make sure that the free area is adequately sized and there's not restrictors fitted in there. But yeah, they need to be properly inspected.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's a good tip about the restrictors as well. Actually, I'd forgotten about that one because you
Yeah,
used to get some that you could snap off the
that's right.
restrictors, didn't you? Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's a good point. Um, DGFs, so
Oh, yeah,
decorative gas fires. Obviously, a lot of the time we get this a lot. Do they need ventilation? Don't they need ventilation? So if we go to the standard, it always refers us to the manufacturer's instructions because there are some that don't need a vent, but I would say probably 8 times out of 10 they do need a vent. And again, the question we get all the time: does it need ventilation? So if the MIs aren't available, the standards do say to give it 100 centimeters, a vent with 100 centimeters squared free area if there's
yeah,
no guidance in the manufacturer's instructions. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
just
I think the thing to remember about DFE files, the design of them, they're basically sat into a catchment area, and it allows much more air to be drawn up through the chimney. So a standard ILFE fire, you've got a small spigot which controls the amount of air that's drawn out of the room. So the DFE fire will draw much more air out, and they tend to burn more gas as well in some cases. So automatically you're looking for a minimum of 100 square centimeters free area in most cases. But always check the MIs.
yeah. I think in most MIs, if you look at them, they do state the 100 centimeters square anyway, don't they?
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah. So no, I mean, it's just a little sort of something I thought to add in this podcast, really, because I know, I get younger guys asking about open fluid appliances, and I think, like we said, it's just not commonplace for engineers that haven't been in the industry that long. But as normal, they can always ring in, talk to
yeah,
myself or you, Stevie, and we can sort of point them in the right direction. Um, so just to wrap up, really, this is just the first podcast. We're
yeah.
trying something new for the engineers to see if they want anything. Just thanks everyone to listening. If anyone has any feedback or they've got questions they want us to discuss, me and it might not be Stevie next month, might be another one of the team. We can discuss them, do a bit of a Q&A, just answer the questions people want answering, really. So it's not a problem. Or if you've got any feedback, if you think we could do this a different way, you think we could do it better, any feedback or questions you've got, just send them into our technical inbox. The email address is technical@gassaferegister, all one word, .co.uk. And if you have any technical inquiries, just send us an email or give us a call into the team. So thanks, Stevie. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. Hopefully I'll
Thanks,
see
Rob.
you again soon. And
Yeah,
yeah, brilliant. Thanks for joining us.
thank you.